Hello, so this year we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of ETpedia, and it's also the 5th year of ETpedia vocabulary, which I had the privilege to work on with Fiona Morklin and Stacey Hughes. And today I want to share with you 3 of my favourite things from the book, a tip, an activity, and an idea. And I'm going to start at the beginning and start with some of the basics, because although the book has lots of practical classroom ideas for teaching vocabulary, we've also focused a little bit on some of the principles behind vocabulary teaching. So starting from the beginning, I want to have a look at a tip from Unit 6, which is about selecting lexical sets. So deciding what vocabulary to focus on in class. And I'm going to have a look at tip number 6, which is about avoiding words that are too similar. So if you have a set of vocabulary that either is similar in meaning or has lots of words that are a similar form, that can be quite confusing for a student. It is known as interference, and it's when they keep mixing the words up. So if you have a set of phrasal verbs that all begin with put, then it's going to be very difficult for a student to remember the differences. And one way of avoiding this is to make sure you have a mixture of different parts of speech in your vocabulary set. So don't just have all adjectives or all phrasal verbs. For example, if you are looking at feelings, often we tend to see vocabulary sets that are all adjectives: happy, sad, upset, excited. But you could mix that up. Yes, have some adjectives, but you could also have some nouns. The word feelings, fun, excitement. You could have some verbs. Again, feel, complain, enjoy, love. Yeah, they're all words to do with feelings. And by having more of a mixture, then students are likely to get them less confused. My number 2 activity, favourite activity, a practical classroom activity. This one comes from Unit 25, and it's about the idea of register. Now, I think very often we tend to focus on form and meaning. So we have lists of words with their associated meanings. But we all know that language and vocabulary, there's more to it than that. We need to understand when it's appropriate to use words. Words have connotations, they have register, they have some are formal, some are informal. And the tip that I've picked is activity number 9, and it's called One Genre in the Style of Another. And the idea is that you take a text, it can be a very short text, for example, a newspaper article, and you ask students to rewrite it in a different genre, a different style of text. For example, as a short story, something more literary, something more dramatic, or maybe as a first-person account, somebody telling their friend about what happened in a more informal, more spoken style. And to do this, you're obviously going to need to help the students a little bit by picking out the words, the vocabulary in the original text, which is specific to that register, to that genre. And then brainstorming what different words would you use if you were changing this into something different. You can get creative with all kinds of texts. You could have, for example, a piece of literature that you convert into instant messaging between 2 of the characters, for example. And it doesn't have to be a text that you've found specifically for this activity. You might use a reading text that you've already been studying in class. And choose a short section, maybe a paragraph, and get students to rewrite it in a different style. My 3rd and final idea is from Unit 42, which is a unit that's very close to my heart. I'm a lexicographer. I've been working on learners' dictionaries for the past 25 years. And Unit 42 is about ideas for integrating dictionary skills into the classroom. Now, I think the dictionary is one of the most vital resources for learning vocabulary for any learner. But unfortunately, a lot of learners tend to not necessarily have the dictionary skills they need or even know what dictionary resources are available. In a modern era of translation and AI, they will often just search for something online and get a quick translation, which, yes, can be useful in lots of contexts, but it's not so useful in a language learning situation because it doesn't involve much processing. Looking up a quick translation, the word probably won't stick. Whereas research shows the more processing that's involved and the more critical thinking that a student has to go through with a piece of vocabulary, with a word, the more likely they are to remember it. And learners' dictionaries specifically target all those aspects of a word that a learner needs to know. So thinking about the part of speech and the grammar and the usage and the collocations and highlighting these things. But how do you get students to actually use learners' dictionaries? Well, the idea here is number 6 in this unit, and it's something that I use myself with students when I'm teaching, and that's to include links to online learners' dictionaries in written feedback. So in an area where you're maybe marking homework in electronic form and putting comments in the margin, include an actual link to the specific entry in a learner's dictionary for the student to click on. So, for example, if you think they've used a word slightly wrongly, if they've chosen the wrong word, maybe it's a noun that should be uncountable and they've made it into a plural, include the link and tell them what they're looking for. Tell them to look at the part of speech or the grammar label or whatever it is. And learners can't resist clicking on a link. And then you've got them hooked on a resource that is going to be really useful throughout their learning career.